Welcome to the Fantasy Football Endgame with your hosts, Pierre Camus and Chris Moncano.
What is up, guys? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Endgame. We're here to talk quarterbacks for Week 5. This is our start sit episode. We do this every week. If you haven't noticed, we got quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end every week to help you win. That's our endgame. Help you make the best decisions to dominate. I'm Pierre. With me is Chris. Before we get to our start sit questions as far as who you might want to put in, keep on the bench, stream, whatnot, get personal here. Your team, right, the Washington football team, making a switch at quarterback. So I'm going to let you get your say in, at least your 2 cents, because I know you've been tweeting about it. Should have gone with my boy. Oh, wait, what's this right here? Is it?
Oh, man.
Should have gone with the boy, Tua, but we got him. So you got Haskins, and that hasn't worked out. But do you think he got a fair shake? Because obviously it's, Week 5, and he's on the bench now for Kyle Allen.
I mean, did he get a fair shake? I don't know. Look, we're talking about the NFL. We're talking about the best of the best, all right? It's a privilege, and not to take anything away from these guys. I know they're insane talents. They work insanely hard. I get all that. But there's lots of guys that would love to play in the NFL. Like, it's a privilege to get to play in the NFL. Like, it's not one of these, like, charity, everybody gets a trophy, okay? It's the NFL. If you're not playing well, that's the way it goes. That's just the way it goes, right? So did he get a fair shot? I don't know. But you know how I felt about it. I talked about this before the draft. It wasn't like I just started saying this, right? There was a lot of Washington fans out there. Draft Chase Young. And I'm like, what are you doing? Chase Young is not going to change the franchise the way a QB will change the franchise. Like, Chase Young could literally be Reggie White 2.0, and that's not going to bring a Super Bowl or perennial playoff appearances to this Washington team, right? Without a quarterback. It's just not. It's just the way the NFL works. You don't have a quarterback, you're not going to the Super Bowl, you're not going to win the Super Bowl. So, I don't know. I mean, whatever. They're moving. Kyle Allen, Dwayne Haskins, it doesn't matter. They're both terrible. This team isn't going anywhere this year. All I can really hope is that somehow they don't win another game, and maybe the Jets luck into a couple wins or something like that, and they get the number 1 pick, and they don't blow it this time, and they take Trevor Lawrence.
Thank for Trevor. There it is. Your wish, make them true. We'll see. It's hard to say. That's a debate for a whole nother thing. I hate to see teams just give up on a guy so early. It feels like after a couple games, if a guy doesn't show up, then there's like, okay, we're done. Let's move on. So, but hey, at least you didn't get Daniel Jones. It doesn't look like that's going much better. So here's the thing. You probably weren't depending on Dwayne Haskins in your fantasy league. If so, then we need to have like a private consultation, get you some intervention there. But if you had Cam Newton going, well, he's out again. If you had Aaron Rodgers, you're doing pretty well. Well, he's on bye. Matt Stafford also on bye. You probably need to pivot here somewhere at quarterback. Who could you stream or put in their place? So let's look at some of the best options. Now, you might be surprised at some of these names, but I'll tell you, first of all, we're looking at guys who could be actually available or you have as your backup quarterback. Or the matchup is just so good, you should consider them. All right, so let's start with Teddy Bridgewater. He's going against the Falcons. End of story.
Yeah, end of story. So in my home league, my wife has Aaron Rodgers, and I have Josh Allen. And I'm thinking, man, we're probably going to both need a quarterback this week. And I'm seeing Teddy Bridgewater on the waiver. I guess I'm a good husband because I let her get Teddy Bridgewater, and now I'm going to have to choose from the rest. Because that's how good I feel about Teddy Bridgewater, because I'm like, let's see. Is it more important that my fantasy team wins or that my wife's fantasy team wins and that I make the right decision so she's not mad at me? And I chose option B, which, by the way, don't play fantasy football with your wife. But anyways, I love Teddy B this week. Like, how can you not? Atlanta is just horrendous against quarterbacks. They're giving up 353 yards a game, over 3 touchdowns per game. I don't see any way Teddy B falls flat here, although sometimes it feels like in these spots that's what happens. And if he does, I may not be married come Monday. So please, Teddy Bridgewater, come through for me, please.
Yeah, that's your hope. And of course, if he doesn't, then it's your fault for picking the wrong person. Not that he did poorly that, no, it is your fault. So at least you're a smart man. You recognize that. Yeah, what's to say? You have to keep streaming quarterbacks against Atlanta as long as Dan Quinn has a job. That's all I'll say. It's just that obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about a guy like Joe Burrow, who's been putting up numbers, not just against weak opponents, but week after week, right, throwing for 300 yards, but now he gets Baltimore. Not an ideal matchup. Do you have Burrow below Bridgewater this week?
I do, only because of the matchup. But that's not to say I don't like Burrow. I think this Ravens defense is a little overstated. They gave up, well, we saw what Mahomes did to them. But even the week before, Deshaun Watson, 275 yards and a touchdown. And last week, your boy, my boy, nobody's boy maybe, Dwayne Haskins, still put up over 300 yards. Now, he didn't throw for a touchdown, but that's Dwayne Haskins, right? And the thing is with Burrow and with this offense is they're throwing the ball a ton. Like, so Haskins had 32 or 45 attempts last week. Mahomes had 42. Watson had 36, and even Baker Mayfield in week 1 had 39. So I feel very confident that Burrow is going to throw for at least 40 times in this game and go for over 300 yards. So if he gets you at least one touchdown, you're going to be feeling good. But I just don't think the upside is there like it is with Teddy Bridgewater against Atlanta.
Yeah, I like how you phrased that too. You didn't call the Ravens defense overrated. You said overstated. So that's nice nuance there. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. They're not a shutdown dominant pass defense. So I think he could still get some numbers, and they could keep this game a lot closer than people think too. But no, you have to go with Bridgewater for sure first. That Atlanta Falcons defense, only 2 interceptions on the year, and they've allowed 13 passing touchdowns. That's the most in the league. So Burrow is solid. But, yeah, you got to prefer Bridgewater. And then another player, talking about rookie quarterbacks, Justin Herbert has been amazing. He's been pretty much as good as Burrow. I'd say it's been more impressive what he's done because he doesn't have quite the same level of players to throw to. He didn't have, Tyler Boyd and A.J. Green and then T. Higgins, right? Keenan Allen, yeah, and then that's it because Williams has been hurt. A bunch of guys that I had to look up and search. I didn't know the name of half the receivers catching touchdowns, but he's finding them, all right? Without Austin Eckler, is this good or is this bad? Because you think, well, obviously it's bad. You miss a guy that you can dump the ball off to, one of your main players on offense. But then they're just going to have to be forced to pass the ball more. So maybe from a fantasy standpoint, it maybe works out for him.
Yeah, it's a little concerning to not have Eckler, obviously, because he's like that safety valve who can not only catch the ball but pick up yards after the catch. But I still really, really like Herbert this week against the Saints. The Saints have given up at least 2 touchdowns in every game. They've given up 3 in each of the last 3 games. They're not giving up a ton of yards, but I think that changes this week. I mean, Herbert's basically throwing for 300 yards in every game. I think he had one game where he was like 10 yards short or 9 yards short. So I feel very good about Herbert this week as a high upside play. I think he can go for 302 touchdowns this week against the Saints defense. And look, we talked about it on the running back pod. With no Austin Eckler, neither of us think Kelly or Justin Jackson are really going to be able to do much on the ground. So it's probably going to be up to Herbert to throw the ball, 35, 40 times if the Chargers are going to have any chance in this game. So I like his upside a lot this week.
Yeah, I'm fully on board right now. I was definitely wait and see mode with him when he came in. He's done nothing but impress so far. And I think it's amazing he's done this, again, with so many injuries. So I think the game script could work in his favor. And like you said, Saints, have been giving up, a lot of yardage in the secondary. They're a strong run defense, not so much pass defense. I don't know if I'll go so far as call them a funnel defense, but it certainly plays in his favor. So I think he's still streamable, but I have him just a peg under those first 2 guys, which I guess is probably why we put him in that order. So next in line for me, I guess, would be Gardner Minshew. He's had some moments, but still inconsistent. It's like, I don't know which Minshew we're going to get from week to week. It helps that DJ Chark is back, right? Put up good numbers last week, 351 yards, 2 touchdowns. But it's still, I feel like I don't know if I can count on him. And the matchup is okay. It's not great. So how do you see this playing out for Minshew? Do you think he's kind of one of those solid streaming options again?
He's okay. I would definitely have him below all the guys we've already talked about. The inconsistency, and then the Texans are another one of those teams, kind of like Carolina, where you think like, oh, it's the Texans, but they're much, much, much worse against the run than they are against the pass, like significantly worse against the run than they are against the pass. I think they're giving up almost 200 yards on the ground, right? So against Mahomes, only 211 yards. Against Lamar Jackson, 204 yards. Against Big Ben, 237 yards. Cousins last week, 260. Not really giving up, only 7 touchdowns through 4 games through the air. So this is not a great or not a terrible pass defense. It's an awful run defense. I think this is going to be a huge James Robinson week, not a huge Gardner Minshew week. He's okay, but I'd prefer the other guys we talked about over him.
Yeah, and we're not always going to put them in order necessarily, but I kind of feel like that's the order, right? In order, and I think they would all be solid options. Again, you're trying to make up for Aaron Rodgers or somebody being out. I think you'll do fine with Minshew just because the Texans, don't know what to expect. I don't think that they'll all of a sudden be doing better. If anything, Romeo Crennel, the defense coordinator, now he's been promoted to acting head coach. Maybe a little less emphasis on the defense and more on just running the team, trying to get them to compete, trying to get that offense clicking, because that offense was supposed to be their strength. And it's, for some reason, wait, I know the reason. It was Bill O'Brien. They've been struggling. All right, so let's go to our next player, and this is kind of just going to lead into a perfect segue. I don't know if I should just spoil it. This could be possibly your boom pick of the week, but I'll let you go.
Yeah, so I guess you can just segue right into our booms and busts. So not only do I like this guy, but he's my boom of the week, and that's Daniel Jones. And here's why: the Cowboys are horrible, horrible defense. They've given up 11 touchdowns over the last 3 games to quarterbacks, and that doesn't count the touchdown they gave up to Jarvis Landry. So really, it's 12 over the last 3 games, right? It's 12 over the last 3 games. I know Daniel Jones has been terrible this year, and it's hard for me to pick a giant. But, man, I think the matchup is too good. Even Baker Mayfield, even though, he didn't put up a lot of yards, but, again, Jarvis Landry threw like a 30-something yard touchdown, so I kind of limited him a little bit. Still had a nice game against this defense. I think Daniel Jones has a nice game. Look, the Giants aren't – Cleveland can run the ball 40 times. The Giants can't. They're going to have to throw if they're going to keep up. And I think he's going to throw a lot, and I think he's going to have plenty of opportunities in this game. Yeah, he'll probably throw a pick. He'll probably fumble, but it's okay because he'll probably also throw 3 touchdowns and make up for it. So, I like Daniel Jones not only as a streamer but as my boom of the week.
That's an important caveat. If you're in a league that's like -3 for an interception or a fumble or turnover, it's not worth it. Don't play. So we've talked about how bad the Falcons secondary is. We've talked about how bad the Cowboys pass defense is, and I think we've talked about the Browns too. But none of them compared to the Seahawks so far this year. So the Seahawks have allowed 1,634 yards passing to quarterbacks. Next closest is the Falcons, 1,415. We're talking about a 200-yard difference. That's how many yards Seattle's secondary is given up. They weren't supposed to be this bad. I don't know why, but I think partly, of course, the pace of play. They're letting Russ cook. Well, when you keep scoring so fast, the other team's going to do it back sometimes. So point is, you can pretty confidently stream against Seattle, and that actually includes, I think, Kirk Cousins, who has been fairly decent the last couple of years. Jefferson has emerged as a viable threat. So, Seattle is one of those defenses. They're kind of becoming a funnel defense. So, yeah, I think you can stream Cousins with some confidence. I would probably put him still behind Bridgewater, maybe ahead of Joe Burrow, I would say. So he might be second on my list, although that's kind of tough to swallow. But, yeah, I might have Kirk Cousins kind of up there with Daniel Jones territory. All right, what about your bust? Who's going to let us down?
My bust is Matt Ryan. I just feel like, we've talked about the Panthers secondary is a lot better than people think. I think the Falcons are going to have a lot of success on the ground. I don't think he's going to have to throw the ball 40-plus times in this one. No Julio Jones. We don't know what kind of Calvin Ridley we're going to get. We don't know how healthy Russell Gage is. I'm just pretty nervous about Matt Ryan this week. I think it's one of those where people look at it and think, oh, Matt Ryan, Carolina, just start on with confidence. And I think it's a letdown week I can see it being one of those, like, where he only throws one touchdown and gets you like 15 points type of game.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. It's a struggle. So a struggle last week could be a struggle again. I don't know. That whole Falcons team just seems to be falling apart at this point. So I will go with, for my bust, Jared Goff, who let us down last week. I think he's going to do it again. Washington defense, not as bad as you might think. Not great. I'm not saying they're going to shut people down. Chase Young, we talked about him earlier. He's questionable. He looked pretty dominant when he did play. But whether he leads in the Super Bowl or not, the point is that Washington does have a good front seven. This defense isn't giving up a ton of yards to quarterbacks. And of course, as I mentioned in the running back episode to start sit, Cam Akers, this is his time. He's going to shine. He's going to just run up and down the field. So Goff, we just got to sit back and he would just watch. He'll just have to hand the ball off all game. He won't have to do anything. So are you on board with that?
Sure, I'm on board with that. I'm playing against Jared Goff in one league this week, so I'm definitely on board with that.
All right, there you go. So that's quarterbacks. I mentioned our other episodes already up. We talked about running back, wide receiver, tight end. Catch all of those. If you want to catch everything as soon as it comes out, hit that little bell, of course, after you subscribe. We're here at the end game. Our end game is to help you win and dominate each and every week. Follow us at Endgame Fantasy on Twitter and hit us up with a comment if you have any more specific questions. Thanks for watching.